Hello everybody, my name is Ash, and today I'm going to talk about books that I wish I could read again for the very first time. Now this tag thing I've seen it going around, and it's usually, now it's been titled as books that I would sell my soul to read again for the first time, but I'm not comfy with that language. Because even in that case, I know it's like for fun or whatever, but even in that case, I would never, so I do be wanting to keep my soul. I'm not gonna let an Addie LaRue happen to me. No. So these are the books that I wish I could read again for the very first time. Most of these books are in some way nostalgic, or they led to me reading more in my past. Like I was a teenager when I read most of these books, and then it set me off in different directions, or they made me particularly emotional, and I have like an emotional connection with them, and I can't bear to let them go. So I just wish I could be in that mindset again. So we'll get started. I have 10 books to show you. So the first one is Angelfall by Susan E. This book, I don't know if it was popular, but it came out in 2012, so it was right in that like ripe post-apocalyptic dystopian era, and I love that era. I want to live in that era, like not like actually live in a dystopian era, but I want to live in the time when people were publishing dystopians. We should bring that back. No one agrees with me. This book is about Penryn, and she is just fending for her life with her sister and her mother, who is a little bit, she's, you know, a few crayons short of a full set, and she is kind of trying to keep the family together as they endure this takeover that has happened when some angels came down and decided to take over the world. And she ends up witnessing a bunch of angels bullying another angel, and his name is Rafi, and they cut his wings off, and she figures she'll help him, but in the process they manage to steal her sister, who is in a wheelchair, and she's kind of having to team up with this fallen angel to have a quid pro quo kind of a thing happen, where she'll help him get his wings back and he'll help her get her sister back. And this is a trilogy, which I love trilogies. I loved this book, the second one, End of Days, and the second book, World After, and then the third book, End of Days, wasn't my favorite, but it still, I think, was a strong conclusion to this novel. And of course, there's gonna be a love story, so it's just quintessential, like, teenage, dystopian, post-apocalyptic fiction. And I found myself being too emotionally attached to these characters, so it'll always have a place in my heart. Plus, it's very short, and I don't know, I just loved it. Do I need another reason? The next book that I wish I could read again for the first time is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. Book 1 in the Mistborn, like however many books there are, series. I thought it was a trilogy way back when. I was so young and naive. I am now currently reading the 6th book, Shadows of Self, and I'm loving that one. But this one is about our heroine Vin, who is this orphaned ska girl, and she ends up meeting this mentor type character, and his name is Kelsier, and he is forming this crew to pull off a heist in this novel. And he also has the powers of a Mistborn, which means in this series, in this world, that if you are a Mistborn, you can drink different metals, and as you drink them, you have different allomantic powers to like interact with metals and control emotions, things of that nature. And this book is just, it's beautiful. The trilogy in itself is amazing. The character arc of Vin, our urchin girl, from start to finish is just, it's lovely. And then there's even a little romance in here. And this, I also want to read this one again for the first time. because it is the first Brandon Sanderson that I read, and then it started me off on this whole binge of Brandon Sanderson books, and now I love reading his work, and I look forward to every time a new book comes out. I've even read books, three out of the 4 books in the Stormlight Archives, and it's also been a way for me and my dad to bond over his books. He hasn't read this one in particular, but he's read all of the Stormlight Archives, and now he thinks he's even more knowledgeable than me, so I'm trying to catch up with him. But I love this book, and the characters, all the characters, Vin, Elend, our crew that pulls off the heist with Kelsier, and the end of this book did make me a little bit weepy, so love this one. Going with the vein of fantasy novels, I would say one I really wish I could reread again for the first time is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Oh, Patrick Rothfuss. We have beef, Patrick. I'm sorry. I know I'm ganging up on you like everybody else on the internet. We need the 3rd book in this series. Please, give us something. Please. But this book is about our main character, Quoth, and he is this a Demaroo traveling musician with his parents in the beginning of the book, and then he ends up being orphaned at a young age, and then he ends up on the streets, and then he somehow ends up in this university for learning how to basically be a magician. And this book starts off with the adult Quoth, who's going by Coat at this point, and he's an innkeeper, and he's kind of lost his luster. He doesn't feel like he is this hero that people say he is. And when this traveling kind of like biographer comes into town, he sees that this is the legendary Quoth, and he really wants him to tell him his life story. And so Quoth says, okay, I'll tell you my life story, but you have to stay here for 3 days. And so this book chronicles the first day of this story, and you really get taken on a journey from his early life to, I think this one ends during his time at the university. And I love the cast of characters in this one as well. For all of these books that I'm going to mention, I love them because not only their plot, but because of the characters in it. They seem very lifelike and like people that I would kind of want to be friends with too, even if I don't like them. And the other reason why I love this book is because there's an element of performing in it that I really relate to. And so I would say definitely if you are a lover of performance and fantasy, and if you like me, I don't love fighting scenes in fantasies. I find them difficult to stay in it and entertained by. But this one has, I will tell you, I don't think it has any fight scenes. So if you enjoy that too, definitely give it a go. And it is a slower read, and it is a long, chunky read. So, but if any of that intrigues you, definitely give it a go, because I need more people to geek out about this book with. Okay, veering off of fantasy, I have, I guess you'd call this a historical fiction kind of romance book, and it is Summer Sisters by Judy Blume. And this one, I read this one far too young. I think I was about 10 or 11 when I read it. My mom gave it to me to read because it was one of her favorite books, and she saw that I was bored, so she was like, hey, here, read this. You're good. And this one is a book that chronicles kind of the early life and then into their 30s of these 2 girls named Vix and Caitlin. And they become friends in a weird way, like just kind of randomly. Caitlin is this girl who people think she has it all. She's like the typical it girl, and she, you know, for whatever reason sees something in Vix one day and invites her in like 7th grade over to her summer house on Martha's Vineyard. and they become friends, and they become summer sisters after that, and they are just friends for life. And you follow their lives through the good and the bad. This book is full of jealousy and betrayal and first love, and it's and full of family too. It's a wonderful read. Another book that I wish I could read again for the first time, which includes almost all of her backlist, is If I Never Met You by Mhairi McFarlane. Sorry, Mhairi, if I said your name wrong. I'm trying so hard to pronounce it correct. Mhairi is now my all-time favorite romance author. And I think that's interesting because a lot of people don't see the romance in it, including my sister. A lot of people were like, where was it? I blinked and I missed it. And that's because Mhairi writes books that I feel like are like more an underlying message in the story and kind of a big picture romance. It's all about not just the romantic romance, but like the friendships and family dynamics and a lot of commentary on life in general. And so this one in particular is about Lori, who has just recently ended things with her boyfriend of about, I think, 18 years. They first met when they were in college, and she's kind of like, this is so out of the blue, I don't understand what happened, and she's left reeling after that. And then when she gets stuck on an elevator with Jamie Carter, they kind of strike up a deal because she wants to save face because she has been broken up with so very suddenly, and he needs to look like more of a family man, someone who's kind of stable and steady. And so he offers to fake date her and keep up appearances in their office. And like I said, I love this one because I love the romance. I can see the romance in this one. In fact, there's more romance in this one than there are in a lot of her books, in my opinion. And I always love Mhairi's male love interests. They're always just so sensible, I guess. I just find them something that I would want to have in a man. So I love Jamie. I also love that I couldn't tell that the author of this book, I first read this one online on an ebook, and I did not know that Mhairi herself was not Black. And I find that when I read books from authors who are not the same race as the character that they're writing from, it's a little bit disjointed and a little bit like they're putting on a costume, but I couldn't tell, obviously, and I loved her depiction of Lori, our main character. And I also love that there is no smut in these books. There's not a lot of spice. It's all about like the intimacy of relationships in general and like the trust and the bonds between people, not so much the shock factor of seeing every nitty-gritty detail. So pick up Mhairi's work, please. She is the queen for me. The next book that I have to show you guys that I really wish I could read again for the first time, because I've read this one over and over and over again. I reread this book and the series several times, is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I don't want to spend too much time on this one because it's very basic. It's a classic on BookTube and in general in life. And Cassandra Clare is definitely an auto-buy author for me, as are all of these authors in this book pile. And if you don't know what this is about a girl named Clary Frey who is in this club in New York City, and she suddenly witnesses a murder, and it's a murder being committed by these people with all these weird dark tattoos, and then suddenly she can't stop seeing this symbol everywhere, and she learns that she is somehow involved with these shadow hunters, and she quickly, by trial by fire, has to depend on them to help find her mother, who has been kidnapped. Love the characters, love the setting. I just love how it's just very YA. And I've said this before, if you haven't read this book series before or any of the other series in Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunters world, they follow a very formulaic plot. It's very, I wouldn't say predictable, but you know what's going to happen, what's going to entail in each novel, and I like that. I like the security. It's just very homey for me. And it was a book series that I sped through. I binged after I first read it, and I have fond memories of the places I was where I read them, and it got me, I think this one especially got me into watching BookTube in general, so it very much so was influential in my life. The next book that I wish I could read again for the first time, and I feel like I'm kind of copying Reagan from Peru's Project, but it's The Beautiful Ones, and this is by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I read this one, I think, back in 2021, and I was expecting nothing from it, and that's why I was so shocked when I realized that I loved it so much. This one is about this prestigious society, and this young girl, Nina, has just suddenly joined their ranks, and she's kind of still an outsider in it, and she meets this kind of magician, Hector, one night, and she instantly is a smitten kitten, and she starts to kind of want to be near him more and more, and she asks him for help with her telekinesis that she has. So this is like a weird mix of kind of like a Pride and Prejudice, but with powers too, and it's just a great romance too. I was shocked because I had read Mexican Gothic by the same author, and I've also read Velvet Was the Night, and those books were okay, but I just felt like there was something missing. Like at the end of Mexican Gothic, I felt like the end was a little bit too rushed, and then in Velvet Was the Night, I just wasn't connected to the characters. This is a perfect book from her. I love this book. It's romance, it's a little bit of magic, it's a little bit of like gossip and betrayal. It's so good. Oof. And it's not very long, under 300 pages. It's a short read. I was just so pleasantly surprised by this novel. It had my heart right after I read it, and I really want to read it again, but I wish I could do it for the very first time. Looks like we're going back to YA in this pile. This book, The Raven Boys by Maggie Stievater, I wish I could read it again for the first time. Obviously, I loved it. I've reread it several times since first reading it. This is about Blue, who is part of this family of psychics, but she has no psychic ability, and one day she's in this graveyard helping her mother, because she is kind of like an amplifier for their powers. And as she's standing in this graveyard, she sees a lot of ghosts walking through, and then suddenly she sees this boy, and he talks to her, and his name is Gansey. I love Gansey, and he is this rich student at this prestigious school, private school named Aglionby, and he also has these friends, this group of friends, and they're known as the Raven Boys, and they end up crossing paths, and they just get up to all sorts of stuff. And the kind of heartbreaking thing about this novel and the subsequent 3 that follow is that Blue has been told all her life that she is destined to cause her true love to die, and that when she kisses him, he would die. So she's kind of spooked and eeked by this because she has met this boy, and she's like, oh no. Love these characters, love the setting of this Virginia, like southern town, and I love the house that Blue grows up in. I love all of the sergeant women. There's just so many. I don't even know how many people live in this house at one time. It's at one point a mystery and a romance, and just so much happens in this little book. And I just remember waiting and waiting and waiting for the next books to come out. And when the last book, The Raven King, came out, I read that one in a day, and I sped through it, and I definitely need to give it a reread. Love this series. All right, this next book that I wish I could read again, Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This book was probably my favorite book for years. it actually became, I was one of those girls who, when you read something at a certain time in your life, it becomes your personality. This book became my personality. And this one is about this group of 6 kids who, now that I think about it, they're so young. They're like 15, 16, and 17, but they talk and act like adults. And it's about these 6 kids who are led by, or this group of 6 people led by the Casbrecker, and they are just trying to pull off the greatest heist of all time. This book kept me guessing, it kept me turning the page, and it has probably my favorite ship of all time and my favorite character of all time. I love Inej with all of my heart, and I don't know if I want Leigh Bardugo to expand upon this book series. I kind of think no, because I want her to leave it as a duology and just set it aside. But this is definitely one of those books where the characters have my heart, and that is why I love this book so much. And the last book that I wish I could read again for the first time is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. And this is, again, a dystopian book. It's about this girl, Paige, who has these clairvoyant powers, and they are in London, where it is quite essentially illegal to be a clairvoyant, and all these clairvoyants are being taken to this prison camp and just not being treated well, obviously, and she has to fight her way out of this, and she meets Warden, who is this powerful Rephite, I believe, and they are kind of like the alien species that has come down to invade their world, and she kind of has to get closer to him and learn what makes him tick so she can find and fight her way out of this situation she's in. This is a book series that is still currently ongoing, and every single book that comes out by Samantha Shannon, I read it, I cry, and then I'm like, when is the next book coming out? So the last book in the series just came out was the Mask Falling. That one broke me. If you've read these books, you know that there's just a lot happens in them. Samantha Shannon pulls no punches, and it's just so enthralling, and I love the clairvoyancy and all the different levels of clairvoyant, and I love Paige and Warden. Oh, I love them all. Everyone needs to read this book series. It's so good. And I feel like I can't say, that's the thing, I feel like I can't say why it's so good, because then I'd have to spoil everything. So I'm keeping it short and sweet. Just buy it, just read it. Just get it from the library. Pick it up. It's so good. So those are all the books that I wish I could read again for the very first time, otherwise known as my favorite books of all time. If you've read any of those books, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Tell me what you thought of them, if you love them, if you hate them. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I will talk to you guys again next time, and I hope you have a great reading morning, noon, and night. Bye.